Hello English 200 students. In this video we will cover the Annotated Bibliography assignment, which is due at the end of Module 3. So annotated bibliographies are something a little special. They have their own unique format and their own unique expectations, but you will likely encounter these in future courses. So this is a great chance for you to practice, to learn about what annotated bibliographies are, and to get some quality feedback before you're expected to do them in a more intense way in future courses. The entire length of your annotated bibliography will likely be between 7 and 10 pages. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, and some of you may have had a gasp when you read that. There's a few things to consider. First, 2 of those pages will be the title page and your references page. So that already takes some of it off, maybe actual writing about 5 to 8 pages. Then also consider that annotated bibliographies have a very special format. In fact, APA 7th edition has specific guidelines that you must follow when writing an annotated bibliography. So let me show you an example. This is the template that we have for you. It is listed in Module 3. And you will see here, you can actually use this template. In fact, we strongly encourage you to use this template just to make sure that your APA formatting is up to snuff. Here's your title page. And then this shows you an example of what an annotated bibliography looks like. So you'll see first that you have your references entry. Before I go into that, I strongly suggest that you pay careful attention to the feedback you received on your references list assignment for Module 2. This is your chance to kind of clean up any of those small APA errors or to identify whether or not the source you used was of the quality needed for this course. So pay attention to that feedback. Then, as long as you correct, anything that was issue or any problems you had with your references, you can then just use that references list and start writing your annotations below. You'll see here that there are 2 very clear paragraphs and that the paragraphs are indented. This is called a hanging indent, just like you would use with a references list. So that also kind of adds to the page length because you are not using the full margins of a traditional assignment. Everything is indented, so it's very, very clear, for example, that these 2 paragraphs belong to the Merriam source. Again, these 2 paragraphs belong to the Kawaja source, and so on and so forth. So you can see kind of as I'm browsing that it's not as much writing as you might think it is. Finally, you end with the references page, which again should be very easy if you paid attention to that feedback on your last assignment. And it pretty much just mirrors the exact same entry that you have within your annotated bibliography. All right, so now you know what one looks like. Let's talk about what you need to do. You still need to have 7 sources. So that would be the 5 peer-reviewed and 2 general but credible sources. If you decide, kind of like I mentioned in the very last video, that maybe you want to incorporate a new article, maybe you found a different source, maybe you spoke with a librarian and found something that you think would be much better suited to your project, you would want to incorporate it here. Still follow those APA 7th edition style formatting rules, but you are free to kind of change your sources around a little bit. I would reach out to your instructor if you're looking for something significant. If you're, for example, getting rid of all 5 of your peer-reviewed sources, that might warrant a conversation with your instructor just to help you out for your success. But don't feel like you're locked in yet. All right. So what actually are annotations in an annotated bibliography? For our purposes, they're going to be 2 paragraphs for each source. So I strongly recommend that you carefully read the paragraph requirements here in the prompt. The first paragraph is a summary of the source. So make sure it's at least 5 sentences long and include the main points of the article, like the thesis or the research questions, Look at the method or research methods. What did they do? What kind of study did they conduct? A small note on that, it is okay at this point if you don't really understand what they're doing. Again, like I said in the very, very first video, your instructors know that you are not yet professionals in your discipline. So you will encounter information that may seem a little strange to you, that may go a little bit over your head. We're not asking you to dive deep into the methods here. Just look at that section and say, what did they do? Did they, conduct a series of interviews? Did they do a case study? Did they, use statistics? Whatever they did, try your best to summarize how they structured their research. Look at the findings section. So what came out of this research project? What did they discover? Did it confirm to their hypothesis or did it not? And finally, try to identify important gaps in the research. So this would be areas where maybe more research is needed, or maybe they overlooked something. If you can find those, mention that in the first paragraph. So again, first paragraph, summary. In the second paragraph, it should be at least 4 sentences. And this is where you connect this research article to your own project. So think back to those research questions that you developed in your research proposal. Think back to kind of the overall goal that you're trying to do with this research paper. And now in 4 sentences, explain how does this source contribute to your understanding of the topic? So what new information did you gain? What facet of the topic does this help you understand? How does this source help you present your thesis or your main argument or what you want to do? It is entirely possible that you find that the article did not support your research. That is okay. At this stage, if you haven't found another source, that's okay. You can say, I do not think that this article will be useful for reasons X, Y, and Z. Just make sure that you are explaining why you think it's not useful, and maybe add what additional research you may need to do. So those are your 2 paragraphs. Make sure you do one for every single source. One final note on this, some of your general but credible sources may not be studies. They may not have, for example, a methods section or a finding. In that case, you still want to think about the overall broad summary. It's only 5 sentences, so look at the significance, look at the so what, the big deal, maybe look at what evidence they use if they mention another study or if they reference maybe another newspaper article or whatever it is, you can include that information. The audience for this is scholarly. Now we are firmly in academic territory. You want to imagine that a fellow researcher, one of your peers, were to read your annotated bibliography. Their expectation would be that just from reading your paragraph, they understand the overall big idea of what your article is about. So they don't have to read it themselves. They read what you wrote, and now they get the big idea or the main idea and how it will support your own research. You are allowed to use first-person pronouns like I, me, mine, or my, but still maintain that scholarly tone. So avoid contractions and slang, other colloquial speech patterns or figurative language. So in effect, you are writing to fellow researchers. Like I said, annotated bibliographies are very common in higher education. It is highly likely that you will do one of these again. So take this seriously, but also take it as a learning opportunity to learn how to engage in research, how to read research, and how to utilize it for your purposes. This also will assess your ability to summarize, to paraphrase, and to evaluate source material. So we're building on that references list activity from last time. I do want to make an important note. Annotated bibliographies are very unique. You do not need to use an in-text citation within your annotated paragraphs. So I'll repeat that again. There should not be any in-text citations, whether quotes or paraphrases, in your annotation paragraphs. And the reason for this, the reason it has that special thing, that special rule, is that if we go back and look at our example, it is very, very clear to everybody who reads this that the following paragraphs are related to this source. So in a way, it's a roundabout way of having an in-text citation just for annotated bibliographies, because there is no question as to what you are talking about. You have the source above it. All right. AI is also really, really important here. Now, if you remember in the last module, or in the last assignment, I mentioned that you would be allowed to use AI to help you summarize. And the point for that was to help you determine whether or not you wanted to read the assignment. In this annotated bibliography assignment, you are not allowed to use AI. We know that it can help you quickly summarize articles, but the real issue here is that the goal is for you to understand, to critically engage with, to formulate original arguments, to critically think about these articles. We know that research articles are tough. This is one of the greatest challenges that all students, your instructors included, went through as they went through college. So if you use AI to summarize these articles, you are not utilizing those critical reading skills that we're practicing in the read track. Furthermore, you're actually putting yourself at a disadvantage in future courses because you are not building the skills you need to make yourself a better critical thinker and writer. So please, please, please do not use AI for this assignment. We want to see your own learning. We want to see what you can do. We do have some links to some assistance, including a reference to the Module 3 template that I looked at before, as well as how to make a reference entry, how to schedule an appointment with somebody from the Office of Student Writing and Learning, so they can help you with this as well. We have our step-by-step process, or our checklist. Again, this is just for you to help you out. And finally, the rubric. This is a little bit more complicated than some of the rubrics you've seen so far. Just again, carefully go over it. My favorite strategy is to review it at first, finish my assignment, and before I submit, I review this rubric again. I like to see, okay, do all of my summary paragraphs, or that first paragraph, are they thorough? Do they provide enough context to understand? Is it evident that you yourself critically understand the material? Check. And so on and so forth. So just carefully use this rubric as a guide to help you create the best assignment that you can.